It was a hot, sticky August night in 1977. The air in Memphis was thick with the kind of humidity that made you feel like you were sweating even when you were standing still. In a mansion known as Graceland, the house was eerily quiet, except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the occasional click of a clock. Inside, in a room filled with mirrors, clothes, and an array of hair products, a man lay motionless on the floor. His name was Elvis Presley, and he was the king of rock and roll. Ginger Alden, a young and beautiful woman, was fast asleep in the bed just a few feet away. She had no idea that the man she loved, the man who had swept her off her feet and into a world of fame and fortune, was taking his last breaths. The silence was broken by a faint thud, but it was too late. When Ginger woke up, she found Elvis on the floor, his body cold and lifeless. She screamed, and the world came crashing down. Elvis Presley was dead. The news spread like wildfire, and within hours the news reached every corner of the globe. Fans were in shock, and the media was in a frenzy. How could the king, the man who had once electrified the world with his music and his charisma, be gone so suddenly? It seemed impossible, but it was true. Elvis had always lived life to the fullest. He was a man who knew no limits, whether it was buying cars, planes, or extravagant gifts for his friends and family. In 1975, he had spent $140,000 on 13 Cadillacs, just like that. One of them went to a woman who was simply window shopping at the dealership when he showed up. "You don't expect to find him on a car lot at that time of night," she said, still in disbelief. "Put it on the list," Elvis had told the salesman, and just like that, she was the proud owner of an $11,500 Eldorado. But as the years went by, the king's life became more and more chaotic. His health began to decline, and his weight fluctuated wildly. In 1975, he bought a plane and customized it with gold and his famous TCB logo. He would fly to Denver just to get his favorite sandwiches, and he would take friends on tours of the plane, showing off his latest extravagance. But even the plane couldn't hide the fact that Elvis was changing. He was no longer the lean, energetic performer of the 1950s. He was heavier, and his concerts were becoming more and more of a struggle. Elvis's personal life was just as tumultuous. He had been married to Priscilla, but the marriage had ended in divorce. He had a daughter, Lisa Marie, whom he adored, but his relationships with women were often short-lived. In 1975, he was dating Linda Thompson, but by 1976 she had left him. Ginger Alden, a local Memphis girl, became his final girlfriend. She was young and beautiful, but she was also overwhelmed by the intensity of Elvis's world. Despite all the challenges, Elvis kept performing. He had to. The money was too good, and his fans were too loyal. In 1977, he was scheduled to do a CBS concert special, but it was clear that he was in no shape to perform. His face was swollen, his hands and stomach were bloated, and he could barely fit into his jumpsuits. It was a far cry from the confident and sexy performer of the 1950s and 1960s. The night before he died, Elvis was supposed to fly to Portland, Maine, for a concert. Instead, he was found dead in his Graceland bathroom. The official cause of death was listed as coronary arrhythmia, but many people have questioned this. Whatever the true cause, one thing is clear. Elvis Presley had lived a life that was as intense and passionate as it was tragic. As the news of his death spread, thousands of fans descended on Graceland. They came to pay their respects, to say goodbye, and to mourn the loss of a legend. The mansion was open for public viewing, and an estimated 75,000 people filed through to see the king one last time. Some took photos, some left flowers, and some simply stood in silent tribute. The funeral was held at Graceland, and among the mourners were many of Elvis's ex-girlfriends, including Anne Margaret. The service was a fitting tribute to a man who had given so much to the world, but it was also a reminder of the toll that fame and excess can take on a person. Elvis was buried in a cemetery, but it wasn't long before his body was moved to Graceland's meditation garden, where it remains to this day. The king had finally found his resting place, but his legacy would live on forever. In the days and weeks that followed, the world tried to make sense of what had happened. Elvis had been a larger-than-life figure, and his death left a void that could never be filled. But as the fans continued to mourn, They also remembered the good times, the music, and the magic that Elvis had brought into their lives. And as the world moved on, the legend of Elvis Presley lived on, a reminder of a time when the king of rock and roll ruled the world. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, had a unique relationship with food. For Elvis, meals were more than just sustenance. They were a way to connect with his roots and a source of comfort. His love for Southern cuisine, especially fried foods and rich desserts, was legendary. However, this love for food also had its downsides, particularly when it came to his health. Elvis often joked about his weight, but behind the humor was a real concern. In one interview, he admitted, "I would get a little round sometimes, but it's very important to keep in shape, especially when you're in the public eye." His weight fluctuated throughout his career, influenced by his busy schedule and the stress of fame. Elvis's personal physician, Dr. George Nishapoulos, often tried to help him maintain a healthy diet. However, it was hard to resist the comfort foods he loved. Actress Janice Pennington, a close friend, remembered, "He didn't like chicken unless it was fried, and he'd often eat 3 pieces in one sitting." His daily meals were often high in calories and fat, which took a toll on his health over time. One of Elvis's favorite dishes was pork chops and okra. He would often have this meal at Graceland, his home in Memphis, where he would sit down with family and friends to enjoy the comfort of Southern cooking. The recipe for pork chops and okra was simple but hearty, with the pork chops fried to perfection and the okra simmered in a rich, savory broth. It was a dish that reminded him of his childhood and the simple pleasures of life. Elvis also had a sweet tooth and loved desserts. One of his favorites was pound cake with peaches and cream. He would often indulge in this dessert, sometimes having multiple slices in one sitting. The cake was dense and moist, and the fresh peaches and cream added a touch of luxury. His love for this dessert was so well known that friends and family would often bring it to him as a special treat. Despite his love for rich, comforting foods, Elvis also had a more health-conscious side. He would sometimes try to eat lighter meals, especially when preparing for performances. However, the allure of his favorite dishes was often too strong to resist. In one interview, he admitted, "When you calculate the calories, it's a lot, but it's just so good." Elvis's relationship with food was a reflection of his personality. He enjoyed the simple, down-to-earth pleasures of life, and food was a big part of that. Whether it was a plate of fried chicken or a slice of pound cake, Elvis approached each meal with the same enthusiasm and passion he brought to his music. His love for food was a way to stay connected to his roots and to the people he loved, even as he became one of the most famous and beloved icons in the world. As the last notes of Elvis Presley's music fade into the past, we come to the end of our journey through his incredible life. From the early days in Tupelo to the height of fame in Memphis and beyond, Elvis's story is one of passion, talent, and a unique spirit that touched millions. Elvis Presley wasn't just a singer or an actor. He was a phenomenon. His music, his style, and his charisma defined a generation. But behind the glitter and the glory, there was a man with his own struggles and dreams. He was complex, often misunderstood, and always searching for something more. We've explored the highs and the lows, from the electrifying performances that made fans scream to the quiet moment. We've seen how his relationships, both romantic and professional, shaped his life and career. We've delved into the myths and the realities, the controversies and the triumphs. Elvis's legacy lives on, not just in the songs we still love to sing, but in the way he changed the world. He broke barriers, challenged norms, and inspired countless artists to follow their dreams. His impact can be felt in every corner of popular culture, from music to fashion to film. Even though Elvis left us too soon, his spirit continues to thrive. Fans around the world still gather to celebrate his life and music, to share stories, and to keep his memory alive. Graceland remains a place of pilgrimage, where people come to feel close to the king. In the end, Elvis Presley was more than just a legend. He was a symbol of what it means to live life to the fullest. He showed us that with hard work, talent, and a bit of magic, anything is possible. His story is a reminder that even when the music stops, the memories and the love remain. So as we close this book, let's not say goodbye. Instead, let's keep the spirit of Elvis alive in our hearts and minds. Let's continue to listen to his music, to learn from his life, and to be inspired by his legacy. Elvis may be gone, but his legend will live on forever.